Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Aquarium Online Academy. My name is Connolly, and joining me in the studio today, I have my friends Sophie and Sonia, and they're going to be controlling all of the magic that you see happening behind me, as well as monitoring our text and our email line. So right now it is 3 o'clock Pacific time. If you are watching it at that time, you are welcome to text us your questions live in the moment. We'll answer them during the program. That phone number is on the screen right here. It's 562 286 1838. You can also email us, or if you're watching this after 3 p.m. Pacific time and you have questions that you want answered or other things you'd like to share, you're welcome to email us at any time. Someone will always check those and get back to you. Our email for that is live@lbaop.org. Both of those things are on the screen right here. We'll have them up there for reference, so feel free to text us or send us an email. We love hearing from you. All right, so our topic today is going to be about the deep sea. So I think Sonia can put up maybe a picture or a video of what the deep sea even looks like. It's very different than maybe what you might think of if I ask you to think of the ocean. Let me step out so we can look at it here for a second. So here is kind of a picture of the bottom of the ocean here. We can see the seafloor, and it looks very different than some of the other habitats that you might know about, like a coral reef or a kelp forest. There's a lot of things that are different. I wonder if you can maybe make some observations about the things you notice here. What makes this a different habitat than the other ocean habitats? I'm noticing that I don't really see a lot of color. I don't really see a lot of animals in general. So, if we're thinking about the deep sea, all the way at the bottom of the ocean, let's think first about maybe I mentioned the lack of colors. Do we think that a lot of light can get down there? Or maybe do you think any light can reach all the way down there at all? What do you think? Yeah, exactly, right? So at the very bottom of the ocean, actually no sunlight can reach in a lot of these areas. In this picture behind me, we can kind of see what's going on because there's something that's putting light onto the seafloor and took a picture for us. We'll talk about that a little later. But generally, there is no light that's reaching down on that seafloor, so it's super, super dark in the deep sea. What else makes the deep sea maybe a challenging environment to live in? What about the temperature? Think about that. Do you think, based on us just talking about that there's not really any sunlight that can reach down there, do you think that it would be nice and warm down there, or would it be kind of cold? Yeah, it would get colder, right? The further that you go down in the ocean, there's less light down there, and it starts to get really, really cold. So it's definitely going to be dark down there, it's going to be cold, and there's one other thing that can make it kind of a challenging place to live. Think about maybe if you've ever gone swimming and you've dove down like to the bottom of the pool or kind of deeper in the ocean. What do you start to notice? Maybe you kind of feel it like on your ears or on the rest of your body. You kind of start to feel the weight of the water, right? You can feel that pressure building upon you. Basically, as you're going deeper in the water, there's more water on top of you, right? Think about if you're laying in bed and you keep adding a bunch of blankets, you can feel that weight on you. You feel that pressure. So when you go all the way down to the bottom of the ocean, the pressure gets really, really high. You're under all of the ocean water that's above you. So these things can make it a really different habitat and kind of a challenging place to live, right? It's very dark, so you can't really see anything that's going on down there. It's very, very cold, and there's a lot of pressure, right? So animals that live down there have to have some special features to help them survive. So thinking about those kind of three challenges of the deep sea, and kind of thinking about how I mentioned that there's a picture of the deep sea behind us. So let me ask you a question really quick. Do you think that humans can live in the deep sea? Probably not, right? We can maybe go for a swim in like a coral reef or a kelp forest and come back up for air. But if we're talking about the bottom of the ocean, you're really far from the surface where you can breathe, right? And all that pressure would be too hard on our bodies to go visit it. So definitely no humans are living down here or even able to visit by themselves. So how do we get these pictures? Well, we can send things called remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, and we can use these to explore the bottom of the ocean. I wonder if Sonia can put up a picture, there we go, of an ROV. So here we have one of those. We can see there's a lot that's going on here. And first of all, let's chat a little bit about why we might want to send an ROV down to the ocean. So if we were to send maybe like a submarine or something that had humans in it, what would our humans need to survive in that? What do you think? What are some things that we need to make sure humans have if they're like on a ship? Well, definitely they need to breathe air, right? So we got to make sure that they're in like a ship or a cabin of some kind that has oxygen in it. We need to breathe oxygen. And it also needs to be what we call pressurized, which means that there's something kind of pushing back on the force of that ocean water so that we don't feel it on our bodies, right? Our bodies wouldn't be able to survive that. What else? What about things like food? The people down there would need to have food, right? They'd need to be able to see, to work, and the space would also need to be big enough for the humans to fit in. So a lot of these things can make it kind of challenging to send people all the way down to the bottom of the ocean in a submarine. But if we send something called a remotely operated vehicle, like Sonia put up behind me, it's actually controlled by people on the surface. So we can send this down. It's kind of like a little robot that we can send down there that's just on its own. And someone at the surface that's maybe in like a boat, like in a control room like this, can use these tools to control it. So you can see they have some screens here where they can see what the robot is seeing, kind of like eyeballs, right? They have cameras on it. They have some little controls kind of in this area, right in this center one, where they can, it's almost like a video game. They can kind of control, move the robot where they want it to go, grab stuff, do things like that. And they can explore the deep ocean that way, and it's a lot safer, right? It would be really hard for us to send humans down there. It might be kind of dangerous, right? If they're going all the way to the bottom of the ocean. If we're sending just a robot that doesn't have any people on it, it can hang out down there. It doesn't need any oxygen to breathe. We don't need to give it any food. It can just go down there and do all this research for us, make all these observations for us, and we can stay nice and safe at the top. And it can also be down there for a really long time, right? We can explore down there for hours and keep checking out all sorts of cool life that's down there. Oh, here's a really cool picture of an ROV that's exploring, and you can see that it has a light attached to it, right? So we mentioned earlier it's super, super dark. If you look at the area around the ROV where the light isn't shining, you'll notice that it's pitch black. We can't see anything down there. But then in front of the ROV, it has that nice light shining, and we can kind of explore and see what's going on down there. We can also see lots of life that's down there this way. We can have vehicles that are down there just kind of swimming around in the deep ocean trying to find and see what kind of animals can live down there. All right, so another thing we can use our ROVs for is to kind of almost do like experiments. Like, not aside from just making observations, looking at stuff with cameras, sometimes we can attach special equipment to them, like an arm to maybe get water samples. Oh, here's some water samples this one has taken. Or even like an arm to collect stuff, maybe to take some specimens to take back to the lab to kind of examine and study and learn more about. Look at these cool robot arms we have here collecting, looks like maybe some coral. And then we can bring it back up and learn more about it that way, and we can safely visit the seafloor without having to put any humans at risk. So it's a really, really cool way that we have figured out how to explore the deep ocean and kind of get past those challenges that I mentioned earlier of it being really dark, really high pressure, really cold, that make it kind of impossible for humans to go down there. So when we talk more about kind of some other animals and other things that go on down there later, you'll be able to see that all of these images have come from remote operated vehicles, from things that we sent down there to learn more about all the cool stuff in the deep sea. All right, so we've talked a little bit about how we get to explore and learn more about the deep sea, but now let's kind of chat about some of the animals we might be able to find down there. So I want us to think back about one of those things I mentioned, the first challenge of the ocean, the deep sea, is that it's very dark, right? So there's not really light down there. Now, a lot of animals that live in the deep sea have a really cool adaptation where they can produce their own light. And I just use the word adaptation. What that means is anything that an animal has on its body that can help it to survive. So if we think about our own bodies, we have things like our eyeballs to help us see. We have a mouth to help us eat and talk, right? That's really important for us as humans. We have fingers to help us open stuff or talk or, all sorts of things we can do. Those are all adaptations that we have on our body to help us survive. But animals in the deep sea have some really cool ones to help them survive down there. Like I mentioned, some of them can make their own light. We call animals that can make their own light bioluminescent. So bioluminescence, the first part bio, just meaning life, and then luminescence meaning like light. So these are animals that can make their own light. Pretty cool, huh? We definitely can't do that as humans. So let's check out one of the first animals that can make its own light. It is called an anglerfish. Let me step off so you can see our anglerfish a little better here. Now, I already told you that this is an animal that can make its own light, but can you look at its body and guess maybe where on its body do you think it can make light from? Take a second, think about that. Where would this animal be able to produce light from on its body? All right, so maybe if you've seen Finding Nemo, you already know the answer to this one, but this is an anglerfish, and this really cool thing that's on the top of its head up here is its lure. It has a little thing that hangs in front of its face that glows. So the anglerfish has this special adaptation that is bioluminescent to attract food to it. If you've seen Finding Nemo, like I mentioned, you'll know that they see the light and they're like, whoa, what is this? There's something glowing down here. They swim towards it and then right into the mouth of the anglerfish, right? So they can use that, the bioluminescence, the light, to attract prey or to attract its food and to help it find something to eat. Now, I have a model here of an anglerfish that I want to show you. So you can see it's a pretty small model, but here's our anglerfish. It has its lure right here, which is actually kind of a modified dorsal fin. So you'll notice they don't have that fin that sticks up on the top. They use it instead on the front here. And if I show you, if you look kind of really closely on the side right here, you might notice there's like a little thing attached to it. So when we see these really big anglerfish that have the lure, like this one or the picture behind me, these are female anglerfish. So only the female anglerfish have the light that shines in front of them, and they're the bigger of the two. But the male are these really, really tiny ones, and they actually will attach to the female. Because when you're living in the deep sea and there's not very many anglerfish that are down there, if you find one that might be your mate, then you want to just stick to it for life. So the males will actually attach to the female, like a little parasite, and just be stuck on there for the rest of their life, and they become dependent on the female to survive. They actually become part of their bloodstream and get their nutrients that way. So really, really cool adaptation. So sometimes if you find a female anglerfish, you'll find the male attached to it as well. And now you know if you ever see a beautiful anglerfish with its lure, that's a female. All right, so we've learned about one kind of animal that has bioluminescence. I wonder now if we can talk about maybe a jelly that can be bioluminescent, and maybe they use their bioluminescence in a different way. Do we have a picture of maybe, ooh, yeah, we have, this is a flower hat jelly. I wonder, Sonia, can you put up a picture maybe of our alarm jelly? I want to talk a little bit about the color of this jelly. Yeah, so here we go. We can see this is the jelly when it is bioluminescent. We can see kind of that ring of light that it is giving off. But if we were to look at this jelly when it wasn't dark and we kind of put our own light on it, it would actually be kind of a reddish jelly. And it has one really, really long tentacle that's longer than the rest to help it catch its prey, just like other jellies. And the reason why a lot of animals in the deep sea are red is because the red light doesn't reach all the way down there. So sometimes there's no light at all, right? But the spectrum of visible light is broken up into the colors of the rainbow. And red light is one of the first to disappear as it travels through water. So by being red, an animal is actually kind of appearing black in the water, and it allows it to camouflage. So that's why we'll see some other animals in the deep sea are also red. But back to our alarm jelly. So our alarm jelly can also be bioluminescent, produce its own light. And when we look at it right here, we can see it's glowing. And they do this for a really interesting reason. So our alarm jellies will be kind of floating along, hanging out in the deep sea. And if a predator comes up and tries to eat them, they will glow as a defense mechanism. That means something that they can use to protect themselves. And when they glow, they will attract, hopefully, a larger predator to come and eat the animal that was trying to eat them. And that's why they get their name alarm jelly, because by glowing like that, they're trying to ring an alarm and sound for a larger predator to come by and eat that one, and then they can escape and get away. And also, it's kind of a good distraction, right? If you're trying to eat something and all of a sudden there's like a really bright flash of light, kind of maybe distracts you or disorients you, and then the jelly could maybe swim away. So that's a really cool adaptation as well. All right, I think we have one more that I would like to talk about, which is maybe a shrimp that is bioluminescent. So here's our shrimp itself. Let's look at this shrimp that lives in the deep sea and make a prediction about how do you think this animal could be bioluminescent. We saw that our anglerfish had the lure in front of its head. The jelly has bioluminescent parts on its body, right on that circular part of it called the bell. Where do you think our shrimp could glow? Think about that for a second. How could this shrimp be bioluminescent? All right, so if your guess was that the shrimp is bioluminescent by spitting something out of its mouth, then you would be correct. I think we can put a picture of it up, of what it looks like, there we go, of our shrimp ejecting its bioluminescence. So this shrimp can actually, it's basically like kind of vomiting out this bioluminescence into the water. And we'll notice again, they're also that red color, right? So just like the alarm jelly, the red color allows them to camouflage in deep ocean water. So they can use this bioluminescence to also protect them from predators. So they will kind of spit it out as a way to be able to escape and get away. And it's really, really cool. Like the reason why you'll notice a lot of these colors that are bioluminescent are blue is because that is something that you can see in the water. So if they were to, have a bioluminescent that was red, it would be hard, you wouldn't be able to see that. But the blue is a wavelength that does reach down there. And so you can see that glowing in that bluish greenish color. Awesome. I'll mention too, some other animals are bioluminescent sometimes for mating purposes. So there's a type of animal, type of little crustacean called an ostracod. So I can probably put a picture up of our little ostracod friends. And they can do a similar thing to this shrimp, where they can produce bioluminescence as a defense mechanism. But there's one species that also does this to find a mate. So have you ever maybe seen like a peacock and they have really, really big feathers, really big tail feathers to try and attract a female, right? And they want to look super gorgeous and beautiful so that the female will want to choose them. So our ostracods can do the same thing. One species of them will glow to try and attract a female mate, and whichever one can glow the best and the brightest will be able to attract a female mate. Pretty cool. All right, so we've learned about a cool adaptation called bioluminescence, where animals in the deep sea can make their own light. But I want to look now at some other animals that live in the deep ocean, particularly in or around something that's called a whale fall. So sometimes, or when the whales reach the end of their life, they will kind of sink to the bottom of the ocean floor. And it will actually create what we call a whale fall. And this is a place where lots of animals will gather to be able to find food, to kind of hang out, and it can actually sustain lots of animals for months or even years. So we can check out one of our animals that we might find in a whale fall. Ooh, here is one. This is a Dumbo octopus. Why do you think that it might be called a Dumbo octopus? What do you think? Are you noticing it's really, really big? They look like ears on the top of its head. Yeah, right? These are actually not its ears. They are some little fins to help it with swimming, just like a little squid has on the top of its head, or top of its mantle actually as well. So this is an animal that can be found at the bottom of the ocean, eating those in those whale falls. And they provide a lot of nutrients and opportunities for other animals to kind of gather and have lots of food for a long time. I wonder if we can see maybe another animal that also can be found in our whale fall. Ooh, here's a cool one. Have you ever seen an animal on land that looks like this? Does it look kind of familiar? Let me move out of the way so you can see it again. So this is an animal that is called an amphipod, and it's another animal that we can find hanging out at the bottom of the ocean in those whale falls. And another way that a lot of these animals in the deep ocean can get their food is from something that is called like the organic snow. So we have lots of things up at the surface of the ocean, right? There's light up there, things can do photosynthesis, but a lot of those particles will kind of fall down and sink all the way to the bottom of the ocean, and we get this marine snow. And a lot of other animals are able to feed off of that. So even though there's not maybe a lot of food available, there's not a lot of plankton that are swimming around doing photosynthesis, they can find food in other ways. So here's another example of one of those with our amphipod that is right behind me. All right, so now that we have explored some of these animals that are living in those colder, dark areas of the ocean, I want to talk about another part of the deep sea that looks different. I wonder if Sonia can put a picture up. There we go. And we can see kind of a different deep ocean environment here. What do you notice about this picture? How does it look different from before, where we just kind of saw maybe some rocks, some sand, maybe a few animals down there? I'm noticing that in this area right here, I kind of see some stuff shooting up right there. Do you notice that too? I wonder what that could be. Maybe it's like an animal, or maybe is it from like the earth or the ocean itself? So this is actually something called a hydrothermal vent. So all the way down at the bottom of the ocean, there is something that's called the oceanic crust. It's basically what's making up that outer layer of the earth. And sometimes we can kind of get these areas where we can have some outgassing coming from down there. And the really, really hot, more inner parts of the earth can cause these hydrothermal vents to form. I think we might have a little picture to kind of show a little better how it works. There we go. So you can see that all the way down here at the bottom, we have that hot magma kind of more towards the center of the earth. And sometimes it can kind of rise upwards like that. And then we can get these things called black smokers, which are those vents that can outgas that stuff into the ocean. And you're probably looking at this and thinking it looks really, really crazy. There's a lot going on. And also maybe that it might be a place that animals can't really live, right? It's really, really hot. There's lots of really different chemicals that are in there. And it might be kind of hard for any animals to live there. What we've actually discovered is that there are some animals that can live in these hydrothermal vents. And they survive doing a really interesting thing. So remember earlier we talked about photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is when animals or plants, right, can take light from the sun and can turn it into energy inside their body. So they don't need to eat anything else. They can get their energy from the sun. Well, there are some animals that are living in this area that can do something called chemosynthesis. And they can create their own energy using these things that are in the hydrothermal vents. So we have this really long chemical formula up there you don't need to worry about. But basically, just like with photosynthesis, how plants can take light from the sun to make energy, these things can the energy from the vents and turn that into energy the sugar means. pretty cool. I wonder maybe do we have any other pictures of hydrothermal vents or other deep sea exploration that we could maybe check out from our ROVs. Ooh, here's a cool one here. What's going on in this picture? All right, so this was another picture of one of those really warm areas down in the deep sea. So we have a few more minutes now, and I want to chat about one more animal that can do some bioluminescence. And I think we have a fish, a picture of a fish that is bioluminescent. Here it is. Now, this fish, you'll notice, you can see on here that it is glowing from its body. And especially, which part do you notice that's like really, really glowing? I think I see that its eyes seem to be glowing really, really brightly. So this fish can glow from its eyes, and a lot of the ways that these animals are able to be bioluminescent is they have a what's called a symbiotic relationship, which just means the two animals help each other out. They have that with some bacteria. So the bacteria are actually what are able to glow, and the animal will have them on their body or in their body somewhere that allows them to glow. So in the case with this fish, they have it kind of all over their body, but especially in their eyes, and they can use that to kind of help them see. So instead of trying to attract prey or scare away a predator or maybe find a mate, this fish is doing it to be able to see a little better in that deep ocean. It's kind of like having a flashlight for eyes, right? If you imagine if you could shoot light right out of your eyes, here are some flashlight fish that we can see doing that same thing. So it allows them to see better in that super, super dark ocean. All right, so maybe we can head back to our first deep sea picture here. We learned today about all sorts of different animals that can survive in these really challenging conditions in the deep ocean, right? And we learned about why, although it's hard to send humans, it doesn't mean that we can't explore it, right? And something that's really cool about the deep ocean is that there's still lots we can learn. We're always sending more ROVs down there to check out more of what's going on. Sometimes we send an ROV down there and we discover a new species. We see something that no one has ever seen before. So if you're interested in learning more about the deep sea, I would highly encourage you to read more about it, check it out. You can always, when you're older, try and do research on one of these places. We need more people to help us out. We need educators that can teach about it. We are always looking for more people to get involved in marine science. Maybe you could even discover a new species if you were on one of these missions. All right, so that's going to bring us to the end of our program today. Thank you so much for joining me again for another Aquarium Online Academy. Remember, if you have any questions that you want to be answered, you can email us at live@lbaop.org, and someone will get back to you and answer those. Thanks so much for joining me, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your day.